what's the size of the TAM, total existing market? And either that's really big or it's really small, and that determines whether or not somebody's going to invest in it. Whereas I think about it, and you probably are the same way, I see a market that doesn't yet exist, really. And I say, I'd rather take a massive chunk of a brand new market, right, and totally dominate that market rather than go into this massive TAM and try to take my tiny little sliver and compete with all these other people.
Everybody talks about unmet medical need. They're like, oh, I want to invest in unmet medical needs. But what's the existing market size?
Well, in fact, it's the Uber scenario, right? The market was not taxi cabs, right?
Right.
And I think one of the things that's really beginning to hit, I think, our industry more is, it used to be, you said, it was like, here's this unmet need, but it's like if you have 1,000x improvement in the technology, it doesn't fit nicely into the system. You have to think about, how am I building a new business? How am I building, something for a market that doesn't exist? I mean, and I recommend everybody who's interested in bio, go back to listen to the Eli Lilly CEO on Cheeky Pint. What was shocking to me, so they did $40 billion last year in GLP-1s. The highest group that was paying was cash pay. Like, the entire nature is, and because it's actually having market forces, instead of seeing classic 10% improvements in the price or increase in the price every year, GLP-1 prices are crashing. Like, Novo has to survive, and the only way to go against it. And so
imagine trying to estimate like the market size for antibiotics, like when they were first coming out. You were like, well, like the competitive products are coffins.
Right, exactly. But, it takes visionaries.
Well, it's funny because I think I brought up antibiotics as we don't have next-gen antibiotics because it's a business model problem. Because if I go and create the next great antibiotic, your first reaction of a doctor is to put it as the 10th line of defense because we're worried about antibiotic resistance. And so that makes perfect sense, and it's a logical move. But if I'm paid on usage of the drug and you're saying I'm never going to use it, why would I ever make a new one?
And that's why I say that, like, the success of a business is 10%, the actual product itself. Yes. It's everything else. So if you don't understand the entire medical ecosystem and every stakeholder that's going to be touching your product and what causes them to either elect to use a product or not use a product, you're dead in the water if you're not considering those things, regardless of how good your technology is.
It's understanding the way the system currently works as well, and the hinge points to completely change it.
Correct.
Right? Because look, if I've got a 20% better medical device, then good, great. I'll go the regular FDA path, get reimbursement, rip out the old one, put in the new. But in these situations you're talking about, where like, entirely new markets, and we can get to like BCIs, like you have to think differently and say like, okay, maybe pricing maybe it's consumer, maybe not for some of these things, maybe not be consumer, but like how we think about the business of health starts to radically change.
Completely. Well, also I would say that we have the unfortunate issue of technically being a medical device, right? And the medical device world is really challenging economically, right? Because it's centered around like the next semi-better catheter.
Right.
That's the business model that everybody's familiar with. What we're talking about with these human-machine interfaces is like a radical change in technology that should not at all be compared to like the next iteration of a catheter. And so that's something that we struggle with or at least that I do, is for investors to recognize that like this has potential, even though it is quote unquote a medical device, it has potential to be something that is more of a tech outcome, a generalized tech than it is.
Like a brain-computer interface isn't the next stent, it's the next internet.
Right.
That's right.
So
that's right. That's exactly right.
And it creates, look, we saw in tech, to your point, it wasn't like just the technical improvement. It wasn't cloud computing that changed everything. It was cloud computing and SaaS. We figured out the business models. We figured out the new platforms that end up happening. And I think like BCI is a great example of that, because we talk about, obviously, the direct medical applications. They're the questions of what happened, like when it's not a medical application, when it becomes something else.